Another blood-red sunset and yet another moon phase, and still another 100 miles to my next resting place. Driving down the road, eyes on the horizon. Within my car, I'm all alone, but feeling good and feeling strong, knowing that this path I'm on brings me to myself. I'm driving.
Hey now all, I'm Joey C. Welcome back to another episode of Spirit Sherpa. This is the show that helps and encourages you on your journey to unlock your magic mojo. With me, as always, is the Spirit Doctor, Kelle Sparta. Hey, Kelly.
Hey, Joey.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm a little bleary because we're recording in the morning for a change.
I know, we never record this early anymore.
There's a reason for that. I'm not awake. And the funny part is that when we were talking about, whoa, what do we want to talk about today? I said, let's talk about white and black magic. I can talk about that in my sleep.
And so here we are.
And then I made myself laugh because I'm so weird. Oh, yeah, I am. I'm weird. That's all right.
Well, while you wake up, what is white and black magic? I mean, is that good and bad? Or, what is that? Even just high-level concept. Yeah,
so first off, keep in mind that very little of what I say is ever defined as good or bad. Mm-hmm. I'm all about the experience of life, right? But white magic is magic that you use to impact yourself, and black magic is magic that you use to impact others without their permission.
Oh.
I should re-clarify. White magic is magic you use on yourself or on others with permission.
Okay.
And black magic is magic you use on others without their permission.
Okay. It's really just that simple then.
It's very simple.
It's all about permission.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's ethical.
Okay.
It's ethical magic versus unethical magic.
From that perspective, the intention of your spell doesn't really matter as long as you have permission. Is that the ethics of it? Or can intention also drive the white and black?
You can bind a demon into a person with their permission, and it's white magic.
Interesting.
As long as that's what they want.
Okay, so other than binding demons, what are some some examples of what we would see with regards to that?
So you're talking about white magic specifically right now?
Or any of them. How would we be able to tell? I mean, I guess we're able to tell. The episode's over. If we have permission, it's white magic. And it seems simple, but I'm guessing there's nuance.
Well, there is and there isn't. I mean, it's a very simple concept, but one that people screw up all the time.
Okay.
I know a lot of white light and bunny people. And you guys know what I mean by that. I know a lot of white light and bunny people who do black magic all the time, and they would be horrified to know that they're doing black magic, but they do it all the time. And basically, and I actually went to church here locally a few weeks ago, and they did this prayer circle, and they sent out an intention that was black magic.
Okay.
And I was like, oh. And what's funny is Jeff caught it before I did, because I was sort of checked out. I was like, whatever,
Okay.
and he's like, they just did black magic. And I was like, they did? And I went, oh, yes, they did. So I wasn't paying attention. And it was that they were sending out this intention to bring peace to the world. Huh. Anytime you send out magic to bring peace to the world, you're doing black magic, because lots of people don't want peace. If they did, there would be peace.
Right.
And so you're influencing them without their permission. Therefore, it's black magic.
It seems super slippery here, Kelly.
It's not. It's very simple. You said episode over.
Yeah, right. I guess I did, but it feels like it can't be that easy. I mean, people praying or sending out intention to bring peace, it doesn't feel like we can say to them, "Oh, you're a black magic user," but from what you're saying, it's exactly what it is. because they haven't asked everybody everywhere for permission to.
And you're assuming that you know better than they do about what's best for them.
What peace represents.
Yeah.
Oh, good gravy. I'm a little unable to form here now, because now I know even for myself that clearly I've been practicing black magic for most of my life.
As have probably all of our listeners.
Okay.
So I forgive you.
but then let's touch on that, right? So if somebody wishing for peace on Earth is black magic, then does black magic necessarily require forgiveness? Is it simply because you haven't asked permission from everyone on Earth that you're doing the Earth an injustice, or is it just your intentions are good, but you haven't necessarily?
The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Yes. There's a reason it's an aphorism.
Yes.
Yes. So here's the thing. Okay, there's nothing wrong with wishing for world peace, as long as the way that you phrase it is, and the intention that you hold for it, when you say, I want peace in the Middle East, for instance, what you can do is send the energy of peace to those people who are also wanting peace, to amplify their mission, because they are desiring peace. And you can say, I'm going to support with my energy the people who are supporting peace in the Middle East. There's nothing wrong with that, because they're already in alignment with what you're offering.
Okay.
And so you say, for those who are in alignment with this idea, I send you energy, right? Mm-hmm. That is a supportive process. That is white magic. They will tap in or not as they choose, according to their intentions, right?
Okay.
But to say, I am going to sap energy from the people who are creating war, or to say, I'm going to impose peace as an energy across the entire Middle East region, that is black magic. Now, I say this, and now I'm going to say, do what you want. You're a sovereign being. If that's what you want to do, then that's up to you. But you have to recognize that when you impose your will upon others, there's a good chance that those who are energetically aware will turn around and try and do the same thing back to you, because they're going to be like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
And make no mistake, there are quite a few people energetically aware who are either in power or being utilized by people in power, who are doing black magic energy work to create the environments in which we now exist. Okay. I have been out on the landscape. I have seen them. They do exist. And I would not screw with them if I were you, because I don't screw with them. Okay. That should tell you something. Okay. It's unwise. So the thing that you should recognize is that when you do that, you are doing black magic. You are imposing your will upon the world, upon others who do not want it. It's the equivalent of everything you think about in terms of black magic in Hollywood, right? Yeah. Somebody recently asked me if there's a TV show on Netflix called The Order.
Yep.
And she said, "Oh, is that what you guys do?" And I'm like, "No, that's not what we do. That's all black magic."
Yes, it is.
That has no bearing in any reality on what I do. If you want an idea of what we do, then Doctor Strange is probably your best marker for what we do. It's a very different approach. And if you look at those two things, the TV show versus the movie, if you look at those two things next to each other, you can see that it's very different kinds of magic, right? One is imposing things upon others, and the other is working on yourself to improve your abilities. Now, they do then take that out to save the world, right? And they presume that the world does not want to be killed by Dormammu, right? And that in itself is black magic, because clearly there are some people who want to bond with Dormammu because they're the ones trying to help him. So, I'm not saying that black magic is always bad. I'm just saying, recognize what you're doing and do it consciously, because it has consequences.
Right. So when we hear things like white magic, black magic, we also will sometimes hear, and I want to understand if this is related at all, and this is why I'm asking this question. We hear of things like blood magic.
Yeah.
Is blood magic either white or black magic, or is that sort of a thing unto itself? It's a different classification.
So blood magic is often classified in black magic, but the reason for it is that it is a really heavy duty kind of magic. And it's classified in a lot of people often say, oh, don't do blood magic. It's bad. Yeah. So it gets associated with black magic because other people say black magic is bad too. And so they just put them together, but they are not related. Okay. So the reason newbies get told blood magic is bad is because blood magic can fuck you up. Okay. Okay. It is dangerous. Yeah. I've done blood magic twice in my life. And once was when I was a safety for my shaman on his vision quest. Yep. And I didn't actually use the spell I prepped. Okay. Okay. It was an in case of emergency break glass spell. Literally, I had put some blood in a vial. Yeah. And if I could not get him back on his journey, if he didn't make his way back and I couldn't get him back in any other way, I was prepared to use that blood to bind him to me to drag him home. Right. And then I would have had to unbind him. Once he was there. Right. Yeah. So it was an emergency use only. Yeah. And it would have been a significant process to unbind him because I bound him with blood, right? Theoretically, the concern is a valid concern in the sense that people could use it not as a safety. I mean, you are using it with an intention to protect him and bring him back, but people could do that exact same spell in not situations like that where they're just trying to bind a person to them. Yes. Okay, so I'm going to ask this because there may be more to that, but this now is tying together. The way that you were using it, if he knew that there was a potential where you were going to use blood magic to bind him to you so that you could pull him out, and he said, yes, I'm okay with that, does that make it white magic? Yes. Actually, him asking me to be his safety automatically gave you that permission to do whatever it took to get him home. So in that case, the blood magic was white magic, but if you were binding a person without their knowledge to you, that would make it black magic. And that's okay. All right. Yeah. It's a hammer like anything else. You can use it to build a building or you can use it to bludgeon someone. Yep. You know, it's up to you as to how you use it. It's a tool, right? And the other time I used it was when I made a commitment to spirit and I sealed that with blood. Okay. But that's the only 2 times. And in both of those cases, it was effectively white magic use of blood magic. Yes. Okay. Yeah. I have only used it twice. Yeah. Period. Right. Well, I mean, I did oh shit, I probably shouldn't have done that. I did the blood sister, blood brother thing, with one of my childhood friends back in the day. And I'm like, oh, I knew better than to do that. I don't know. I'm trying to remember who it was with even. Because you're bound. We're bound, yeah. Clearly not that bound because I don't remember who it was. But I remember doing it. I remember pricking my finger and going, that hurts. I don't like it. And anybody who says, oh, cut across your hand and, do the thing that they do in the movies, that shit hurts, man. They're so full of shit when they go, yeah. Well, then it hurts for a long time, too. Oh, my God, it takes forever to heal because you use your hands all the time. It's the stupidest damn thing I've ever seen. So, yeah. But, okay, so let's talk about that for a second because that's an interesting one where as kids, that's something that, kids somehow hear about blood brothers, blood sisters, blood connections like that. And you prick your finger and you press your fingers together. But that's blood magic. I mean, how did that get into our childhood sort of morphic field? You know about Ring Around the Rosie, right? Yep. So, ring for those of you on the podcast who don't know, Ring Around the Rosie, pocket full of posies, ashes, ashes, we all fall down is about the bubonic plague. Right. And so, how did that get into children's rhyme? Right. Same idea. It's like they watched their parents and they imitated their parents. The maypole is a classic example. We have little 5-year-old girls in little headdresses running around the maypole. Yeah. right?
It's a fertility ritual, isn't it?
Fertility rite, yes. You know, I've been part of this as a fertility rite in its proper format, and 5-year-olds have no business doing anything around the maypole hole. You know, it's literally the men go out and find the pole, and they prep the pole, and the women stay back and they prepare the hole, and the men bring the pole and put it in the hole, and then the women and the men together wrap the thing in ribbon to simulate sex.
Yes.
It's a very sexual thing, but we've forgotten, right? In our culture, we've completely forgotten that that's what it's about. And the same thing is true with the kids.
Yeah. And that's an interesting one with children too, because we know that children are often incredibly energetically aware, even though if they don't realize it. So they're quite powerful sometimes. And those bonds can be, thankfully in your case, it wasn't so connected that you can't even remember the person, but there are some cases where it can be pretty powerful, even unintentional. And
there was a guy in junior high who asked me for my menstrual blood.
Okay. And
I, at the core of my being, knew this was a really bad idea. And I was like, no. Aside from being creepy as shit.
Yeah, that's creepy as shit.
14, you know,
that's not a high school thing.
Inhabited by a demon, so you know there was that.
Yeah.
I have my life story is very interesting. Yeah.
Oh boy. Okay. So we've got a situation where white magic and black magic are very simply put all around permission. We call it ethical, but ultimately it's a permission differentiator, because ethics then comes into the question of bad. And even the case of ethics can be defined by in some cases intention and openness. I don't know, it's about permission. Truly, in the case of blood. We also discussed today that blood magic is neither white or black. It could be either, depending on how you use it. But it's also incredibly powerful, and it's not to be trifled with. Yeah,
I would say if in doubt, don't.
Okay.
And probably not, even if not in doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else we should know with regards to white and black magic, and sort of, I guess the simple answer to how to use it is all about how you want to live your life?
Yeah, well, and I want to say that it's not that you can't influence the world, right?
Yeah.
Because you can. I think I've talked about the ritual that I did to bring the Divine Union Temple into existence, right? Mm-hmm. That ritual influenced the world. And it didn't do it in a black magic way.
Okay.
We brought the temple into existence such that those who wanted to, and I didn't even hold the intention about anything other than I was birthing it.
Yeah.
You know, we were birthing it.
Yeah.
You know, actually, Carolyn Kepish, who's been on this, she was part of that ritual.
Oh, cool.
So you guys have met one of the other people who was part of that ritual. The intention was just to bring it into form. It wasn't to do anything more with it. We just birthed it into the world so that it could then begin to grow of its own accord and allow others to tap into it as they chose. And what's very interesting is that we did it, and then 10 years later, I started seeing things pop up all over the place from people saying, divine union, divine union, divine union, divine union. And it's like it took 10 years to mature, right? And then people started tapping in, and everywhere I looked, there were all these divine union things happening.
Yeah.
And I was like, we did that. but we didn't do anything with it after that. We just birthed it and allowed it to exist until it had steeped in its own juices long enough to allow people to tap into it.
Yeah. You've effectively built the building. If you build it, they will come. Kind of thing.
Which is particularly punny if we look at it from a divine union perspective.
Yes. True that.
I'm not the dirty van. I'm not the one with the dirty pun today, Joey. It's you.
Unintentional in that case.
It's always unintentional in my case. And he's constantly giving me shit about it. That's a lovely shade of red, honey.
Oh boy. Okay. So we've learned a lot today. A lot of what we learned in the first 3 minutes of the episode. But we did go into quite a bit of detail, and I think this was pretty awesome. And folks, if you've got any questions about white and black magic, and if you're concerned for your soul because you may feel that you've been wishing goodness on people who you didn't ask them if you could wish them goodness, and you're concerned that that's black magic, remember, it's not good and bad. That's an important piece that we talked about today. It's not about good and bad. It's about whether or not you have permission. And if you've got any questions or anything like that, send a message to Kelle. Go into the Facebook group, the Spirit Sherpa Podcast After Party. You can go there and...
Yeah, I'm going to interrupt you because we actually do have a question that I forgot to tell you about before we started recording. So I'm going to read it. Ken, who was one of our listener profiles, wrote a question to me. It says, do LGBTQ people have a different or more enhanced connection to magic and the spirit world? It just seems like we have more access to what the world is saying, and we're seeing it differently. So my answer to that is that I think it's less about being LGBTQ and more about balancing the masculine and feminine energies within.
Okay. And
that because, not all LGBTQ people do that.
Right.
Right. So I find that the people who have done that tend to be more. And I find that there's also a factor of being an outsider in a culture allows you to see it more clearly.
Okay. Because
you don't see the influences as clearly when you're inside them.
You're not as bound by the societal expectations.
Right.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, being an outsider in any way, not just LGBTQ, but in any way being an outsider allows you to see the insiders more clearly because you're more objective from the outside, right? That's why having a coach is helpful, is because they're not inside your head.
Right.
Outside your head, being able to interpret things for you without the assumptions that are happening inside your head that you're not even aware of. Same thing happens in culture, right? Is that we have these assumptions within our culture that are defining points for us, which, it's very amusing to me that we as Americans define ourselves as the underdog.
Right.
Because we so aren't, right? The country so is not the underdog, but everything in our culture is the underdog, right? When you are standing on the outside, you can see the irony of that statement. Right. But from the inside, it becomes, it just is.
Right.
Well, of course we are, right? We're the scrappers who came across from wherever we came across from and immigrated in, and we made all the way, and we had to fight to stay, and we're the underdogs, and we won, right? Yeah. There's that, and it stuck back 400 years, but we don't recognize that, until it's brought to our awareness. And so the same concept is true, regardless of what we're talking about. There's a lot of that you can see from the outside. And so when you don't feel like you're in the culture, you're excluded from the culture in some way, then, you can see these things more clearly. And so I would say that it's the balance of the masculine and the energy and feminine energy, and it is the role of the outsider that allows the LGBTQ community members of it, because not everybody's balanced in that way, and not everybody's conscious in that way, to be honest, to seem more spiritual as a group. Yeah.
And what's interesting about societal expectations and culture and things like that in general is that it's sort of established to make you feel part of a tribe. It's sort of to help people feel safe. It becomes the morphic field of that group, right?
Correct.
But what's interesting is that until you are able to step outside of it, you are unable to grow because you are stuck in what that culture defines as the norm or the expectations or the path which you must follow. But it's when you are allowed or allow yourself to be outside of it that you can see, just like you said, that outsider's view that, hey, there's another trail over there that I can walk, and I'm really drawn to walk that path. And it doesn't go in the same way that this bubble of my culture or my expectations were going to bring me. And it's such a cool sort of, it's not cool, it's sort of sad in a way, but it's an interesting sort of thing that we create this culture to bind us together. But what it ends up doing is that if it's become so restrictive, it actually binds us from growing as well.
Well, and that was true for me too. I mean, I bought into the American dream, and I had to actually create it before I began to question it.
Right.
Because I was like, okay, I have the American dream. I'm happy now, right?
Yeah. No, I'm not. Why aren't I? I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm following the rules here.
Yes. And I'm following them perfectly because I had to be perfect.
Yes.
Right. And it was one of those moments where you're like, what the hell? Right. Yeah. This is also why in spiritual practice, one of the things that we help you do is to develop the observer inside your own mind, to say, okay, this is me in my experience, and then this is me observing me in my experience, right? Because that observer can often have that outsider perspective because it's not influenced by the emotions. It's watching things play out rather than being in them. Yeah. And so, it can be the first line of outsider support for yourself. And then obviously with a coach being the second line and, whatever else, but it allows you to do that. And so developing the observer mind is important. It's an important practice in the spiritual work.
Awesome. Wow. Ken, thank you very much for a great question. That led to a lot of good conversation there.
There you go.
And folks, again, there's an example. If you've got questions like that, put them into the Facebook group, the Spirit Sherpa Podcast After Party. You can find that on Facebook. And you can go to Kelle's website where you can get a lot of other information. I know we're rolling here a little bit, but I know that sounds disconnected, but it's not, because Kelle's newsletter that's on her website, you can subscribe there. And some of the questions that you're asking, she may be answering, because that's where you put a lot of sort of topical things that people may be sensing and feeling that are going on in the world at that time, right?
Yeah, when I write it.
When you write it, right. You've told us, don't expect it every day. when I'm called.
Don't even expect it every month. You send it when I send it.
Exactly. When you're called. But that's a place where they can go and sort of check in and get connected. You can also check out the services that Kelle has there. You can sign up for Discovery Call, Energy Scan, all kinds of stuff on kellesparta.com that you should go. And speaking of subscribing to the newsletter, we want you to subscribe and rate the Spirit Sherpa podcast on whatever listening platform you're using out there, whether you're using Apple Podcasts or Google Podcasts, or even right directly from the Pippa site, going to kellesparta.com, clicking on the Spirit Sherpa podcast link, and going to the site that drives right from our distributor. So there's a whole host of ways that people are listening to podcasts, and we want you to subscribe and rate them in all of those places. Just get it out there, because the more ratings that Spirit Sherpa gets, the more visibility it gets for new listeners, and that means that Kelle's message just goes out to the world. And we're not putting it out there in a black magic way. We just want to share the message with those who are willing to receive it.
White magic.
White magic all the way. White magic all the way. All right. Did you have anything you wanted to say before we wrap here?
It occurs to me that I don't think we've ever actually talked about the energy scans are.
We haven't?
No.
Oh.
I don't think we have.
Okay.
Have we?
Well, I remember one time you talking about sending out little tendrils of energy to lick people's fields, and then little energy tendrils that licked people's fields, and then you decided what they tasted like. That was how I took it. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you should explain it again, because we haven't talked about it in a while.
Okay. Yeah. So an energy scan is kind of not like that. Okay. Yes. I do send a tendril of energy out. Okay. To the person's energy field, and I tell them what's going on in their aura, which usually represents what's going on in your life right now. Okay. Right. And how you're feeling, and how you're impacted by it. And then I go into each chakra individually, all 7 chakras. I'm only doing 7 chakras. Right. And I tell you what the blocks are that I see in each chakra, and how those blocks are likely playing out in your life. Okay. And at the end, in the process, if there's something that's a quick fix, I give it to you. Yeah. Like, okay, here's a quick fix. Then do this, right? Mm-hmm. If there isn't, then we'll talk about it in detail at the end. Okay. And at the end, what I do is I lay out all the blocks. And I say, okay, this block is a function of that one, so don't bother working on it.
Yep.
Go away when the other one goes away. This one isn't a function of the other one, but it won't move until you move the other one.
Right.
So move the other one first, right?
Yep.
So you get an order of operations and sort of a roadmap for how to do your work most effectively.
Yep.
And as Brenda said, it can be 6 months worth of work in a 45 to 60, maybe 90-minute session, depending on how many questions you have. And it's very interesting is because people tell me they listen to them over and over again.
Yeah.
And they'll come back and say, I just listened to it for the 6th time and I heard something new.
Yeah.
And it's like, how did you do that? I'm like, I didn't. You edited it out of your experience the first 5 times you listened because you weren't ready to hear it.
Exactly. They weren't ready. They weren't at that stage yet to be able to process that piece. Yeah.
I'd like to say I'm that magical. I'm just not. I'm just not. At least not that I know of. Yeah. Maybe my higher self is, inserting random shit
into an audio file that totally a thing. Totally a thing.
Totally a thing. Yeah.
All right. So energy scans, and so people can sign up for them at the website. They go there and just
under
like
the
everything
services
under
tab.
the services. Excellent. And that's done. They don't need to be local with you as well. That's done remotely.
No. Yeah, in fact, I prefer to do it over the phone.
Okay.
Not over video, because I want you to know that I'm reading your energy field and not your body language.
Yeah. Okay. That's great. All right, folks, there you go. It's a little tool there that you have access to by reaching out to Kelle and signing up for one, because that's a fantastic opportunity. Okay, well, that's all that we have for this week. This was a good conversation that sort of went in a whole bunch of different places in the time that we were together.
And you thought we were done at 3 minutes in.
Right. Well, I did. But here we are some 25 to 30 minutes later, depending on what time zone you're in. But that is all that we have for this week, folks. Be sure to join us next time as Kelle adds another chapter into your guide to energy, magic, and the spirit world. I'm Joey C. here with Kelle Sparta, and you have been listening to Spirit Sherpa. So long, everyone.
Bye.
Each mile I travel over 13,000 now. I leave behind a little fear.
Spirit Sherpa is the sole property of Kelle Sparta Enterprises and is distributed under Creative Commons BY-NC-ND 4.0 license. For more information about this licensing, please go to creativecommons.org. Any requests for deviations to this licensing should be sent to KELLE@KELLESPARTA.com. That's Kelly@KelleSparta.com. To sign up or to get more information on the programs, offerings, and services referenced in this episode, please go to KelleSparta.com. This episode of Spirit Sherpa has been produced by Honu Voice Productions.
And my love and my life.